All right, good afternoon. My name is Matt Clark. I'm a lieutenant with the Denver Police Department's Major Crimes Division. I want to thank you for coming out today and giving me an opportunity to provide an update regarding an incident that occurred in southwest Denver yesterday. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the incident, and then I'll attempt to answer any questions that you may have. Please understand, however, that we're in the early stages of the investigation. As such, there may be information I can't release because we either don't know or I need to withhold in order to maintain the integrity of the investigation at this point. With that being said, I'll go ahead and begin with the overview of the incident. At approximately 7:15 a.m. yesterday morning, December 29, 2020, city workers with the Denver's Parks and Recreation Department were plowing the sidewalks in the 1700 block of South Java Way. That's near the Sanderson Gulch area. When they located two suitcases off the west side of the roadway there. The suitcases had been abandoned there. The Public Works workers briefly inspected the suitcases and then later called the police department to respond. The responding police officers conducted a cursory inspection of the suitcases as well and located what they believed to be human remains inside the suitcases. Members of the Denver Police Department's Homicide Unit, the Medical Examiner's Office, and the Crime Lab Unit responded to the scene. The suitcase containing the suspected human remains were transported directly to the Medical Examiner's Office in the manner that they were recovered. Working with the Medical Examiner's Office today, we confirmed that the items inside the suitcase were in fact human remains and the remains of a recently deceased adult white male. Investigators from the Denver Police Department's Homicide Unit continue to investigate the incident to determine the circumstances surrounding the individual's death, as well as to determine how that individual came to be located in the 1700 block of South Java Way. At this point, the victim has not been identified. The Office of the Medical Examiner will confirm the identity of the victim and release that at a later time, and that office will also determine the cause and manner of death of the individual. At this point, we do not have any information or descriptions to provide regarding suspects in this case. I would ask anybody who has information about this case and encourage them to contact Denver Metro Crime Stoppers at 720-913-STOP. That's the brief overview of the incident I can provide, and I'll take any questions you may have. Yes, sir. I want to be careful. I don't know. I don't want to give you wrong information. My understanding is they were plowing the sidewalks of Sanderson Gulch. That was their role. They weren't street plows, but they were specifically addressing the sidewalks in the gulch there. Yes, sir.
How would you describe the area? Was it fairly remote? I mean, is there a lot of foot traffic through there?
It is a residential area, so this was on the body. Human remains were recovered on the west side of the street. On the east side is residences that line that street, and then there's a gulch, and on the other side of the gulch there's residences as well.
Any surveillance cameras on the residential side of the street?
We are working to recover surveillance camera footage that was captured by private residential security cameras.
You say recently deceased adult male. Do you have a list of folks who've gone missing recently that you're kind of matching that list with?
Certainly, that would be an investigative task, and they are working through looking at missing persons that have been reported in Denver. At this point, I don't have anybody to connect directly to this incident yet, as the investigators work throughout the day on it.
Is there anything remarkable about the suitcases?
No, they're standard. I don't know, standard. They're just a large size suitcase, and there was two of them. It does appear that they were left there, and we're working to determine how they came to be there and when specifically they were put there. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that some Parks and Rec employees found those two suitcases and did a cursory check. Can you tell us what they found during that cursory check? Folks that live out in that area told us that they think that there were human remains wrapped in individual parts, wrapped in plastic or whatever, so I'm just trying to find out.
Sure. So the only thing I can speak to at this point, as far as what the parks workers found, was they located what they believe or observed human remains in there as well. That's what prompted them to call the police. Yes, sir. I don't. I'm sorry. There's maybe some. If you're on the Teams call, can you mute your phone? I don't know what you want to do, Jay, with that. Sorry about that.
It's obviously, I mean, a tragic situation or whatnot. Obviously, you're reporting what you found. What are you hoping, though, by letting the public know what's working out?
Well, what we're hoping right now is, one, to get the information out that this incident occurred so people are aware of what may have occurred in their neighborhood, but two, to attempt to obtain assistance in determining what transpired here and how this individual died ultimately, and then how and why he was left in the location and manner that he was.
Any indication yet how he may have been killed?
No. So we're still working on that. The medical examiner's office with the homicide detectives, they were over at their office today, conducted a preliminary autopsy, and I don't have a cause or manner of death. And again, it's probably more appropriate for them to discuss.
When you say recently deceased, like within the last couple of days, or?
And so that's something we're trying to find out too. It appears from the state of the remains that the individual had probably not been deceased very long.
Can you say anything about instances like this before? I've been around town for a long time, and I don't recall remains being found in a suitcase for the last decade or two.
Your assessment is correct. It's been a very long time since we've had a similar case like this.
Does anyone on the Teams call have any questions?
This is Elise, the Denver Post. I don't know if this was already addressed because I can't hear questions that are being asked, only the answers, but can you talk a little bit more about what form the remains are in and how recent is recent when you say they were killed or died recently?
So for those who didn't hear, her question was how recent is recent and what state were the remains in. I'm not the best person to speak to when the individual died, and I think that's probably better addressed by the medical examiner as they continue their investigation of this death. In regards to the state of the remains, that's something we're not going to get into at this point.
You say adult male, can you get anything specific with an age, like 20s, 30s?
I don't. I'm actually waiting for the medical examiner to give us a better idea of how old the individual is.
Have you had any families come forward since yesterday morning saying this could be my loved one?
We have not. We haven't had any recent missing persons reports that we've identified that are connected to this, and nobody has called since that. And it's potential that this press briefing may spark that call that we're waiting for.
Any idea why Sanderson Gulch? Why that stretch along South Java?
So the question was why Sanderson Gulch, and we don't know yet. No, we don't know what if any connection the decedent or the individuals who moved him to that location have to that area.
How far out you spread the net looking for people that maybe have gone missing? Contacting other states, just sticking locally? I mean, how's that work?
So again, we're in the infancy. So today's efforts have been locally, looking at the evidence that we have, working with our crime lab across the street for the forensic evidence that they can provide us to help identify the individual who moved him and potentially help identify the individual who's deceased. This will result in a larger investigation as we continue to determine where this individual came from.
About that recently snowed, does that help at all? Like tracks, that sort of thing in the snow?
The suitcases were left near the roadway. It helps in that there was no footprints beyond, down further in the gulch, but it doesn't lead us to anything that we could track.
Will you be able to recover enough DNA from the wrappings, from the suitcases themselves, from the victim to help direct you to who may be responsible?
That's our hope. That's our hope, and that's what the efforts are being directed at right now to determine if DNA evidence is available on those items.
Is it clear that this person was a victim of homicide?
I'm sorry, I missed that question.
Do you know for sure that this person was a homicide victim, that they were killed?
We do not know that yet. We're going to ultimately rely on the coroner to make that determination, but the Denver Police Department is investigating it as a homicide at this point, just based on the nature and how it came to our attention.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Lieutenant, thank you. We appreciate that.